I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Vecchio.
Here.
Councilman McCarthy.
Here.
Councilman Wareheim.
Here.
Councilman Creighton.
Here.
And Councilwoman Noack.
Sitting as a Board of Water Commissioners, the Board of Water Commissioners to authorize the approval of the minutes of Tuesday, June 3rd, 2014, the full-time appointment of Andrew Lawton to the position of water meter reader, and a bid number 14010 for repairs to the Smithtown Water District building.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Supervisor Vecchio.
Yes. Okay, good evening all. First public hearing tonight is to consider the town board's own motion to change the zoning of the light industrial zone parcels in the Hop Park Industrial Park from light industry zoning to zero zoning called overlay Hop Park Industrial District. Someone here on behalf of the town? Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. My name is Frank DeRubies. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development for the town of Smithtown. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to consider approving an overlay district for the Hop Hog Industrial Park. In my presentation this evening, I will attempt to explain what is an overlay district, why the town is considering using this practice, what are the features of the overlay district, and what effects we anticipate if the board adopts this amendment. More importantly, I would like to show that this effort is part of a long-term strategy to protect and enhance our economic centers that benefit the town in both jobs and taxes. Going back to the concept of an overlay district is a zoning practice where one zoning district sits on top of another zoning category. The overlay district can either provide more restrictive or less restrictive regulations than the zoning district below it. Municipalities use overlay districts basically to fine-tune their zoning ordinance. While the town of Smithtown has not adopted any overlay districts, we already have several in the town that have been enacted by the state and the county. For example, the New York State has implemented the Wild, Scenic, and Recreational Rivers Act, and we have a corridor in place along the Nissaquag River, which basically supersedes town zoning. And the regulations that are adopted in this ordinance are made to protect the river. The town of Smithtown would like to consider an overlay district for the Hop Hog Industrial Park, and I will try to explain why we are going to propose that this evening. Zoning was first created in 1916 in New York City as a response to the construction of very large office buildings. The city fathers at that time decided that the city should be broken up into districts, or what is known as zones, for residential, business, or industrial use. The town of Smithtown adopted this approach in 1932 and thereafter changed the map about every other decade, trying to achieve different land use objectives. In 1959, the town adopted what is known as our current master plan, and the 1963 zoning map is based upon the development that we have today. Of course, it's been amended several times since then. In 2007, the town of Smithtown began a re-examination of the town's 1959 master plan that forms the basis for much of the 1963 zoning map. We're referring to the study as the Comprehensive Plan Update. 6 of the projected 8 volumes have been published, by the way, and are online at the public libraries. The Comprehensive Plan Update, like the town's original master plan, is an examination of all the primary features of a municipality, such as population, economic resources, transportation, parks, environment, and so forth, with the purpose of setting future goals and objectives for land development. What we have learned since zoning was adopted nearly 100 years ago, and since the town adopted it nearly 80 years ago, is that zoning is very good at organizing land uses on a town-wide basis. However, when you apply to specific areas, we do tend to have problems. In addition to these factors, the town of Smithtown, along with most suburban communities, has, for all practical purposes, become fully developed. We as a town are no longer dealing with how to develop vacant land. We are now concentrating on redevelopment issues. These include issues of expanding current sites or tearing down existing structures, homes or businesses and the like, and replacing those structures with more modern buildings or sites. In this redevelopment phase, regulating land use has become more complex. First, because new development has to fit in and be compatible with the existing land uses that surround it, a task that is not always easy. We also have competing objectives in this particular area. We want to remain economically competitive, we want to modernize site, we want to eliminate blight, but we also want to preserve our quality of life. And sometimes there is a challenge in balancing these interests. In this environment, we also have to recognize that we are also competing with other municipalities, governments, both regionally, nationally, and internationally, for our economic resources, such as industrial development that provides taxes and jobs for the community. Some of you may be aware that Governor Rick Perry from Texas visited New York recently for the express purposes of talking to our businesses so that they would relocate into Texas. Finally, we have to consider elements that are beyond the control of the municipality. For example, manufacturing and traditional retail centers are declining. The decline in just the defense industry has significantly impacted Long Island. In the retail area, we are seeing a decline in the brick and mortar stores in response to online shopping and the emergence of big box stores. Nationally, over the last 5 years, an average of 17 malls have been closing per year, and we have seen an even larger rate for large shopping centers over 100,000 square feet. These changes have impacts on the local economy, altering both jobs and tax income. At the same time, they have also impacted land use policies, and the municipality has to react to those changing circumstances. As part of the comprehensive plan update, the town's economic resources was examined. We identified and assessed all of the major business and industrial centers and corridors of the town. The purpose of this examination was to determine existing trends, assess the deficiencies, and determine strategies to maintain or improve their economic status. In the simplest terms, we are trying to keep our economic centers modern and competitive. The largest of these centers is the Hauppauge Industrial Park. This 1,200-acre park is the largest planned industrial park in the region and the third largest in the nation. To give an example of the scale of this park, 10 Smith Haven malls, including the shopping centers that are adjacent to it, could fit into the Hauppauge Industrial Park. It has over 800 businesses and 50,000 employees. In short, it is a significant economic center. While there are some vacant parcels within the park, for all practical purposes, the park is fully developed. Therefore, any changes in the park will be in the form of redevelopment. While the park is one of the most successful land use policies of the town, there are several issues that are of concern to the future of this park, including sewage, transportation, and zoning regulations. The lack of sewage capacity limited any modernization of the park, including construction of new office space. This issue was solved with a multi-million-dollar expansion of the sewer district so that all of the park will be sewered and there is sufficient capacity to change existing uses or to expand. A second issue resolved around transportation issues, including traffic congestion, mass transit, shared ridership issues, and insufficient infrastructure. A $500,000 grant was received by Suffolk County, sponsored also by the Hauppauge Industrial Association, to study these issues, and a 9-volume traffic study prepared by Nelson and Pope was submitted. From that study, a series of transportation strategies were and are continuing to be upgraded or undertaken. One of the examples of the past projects that just were completed is the expansion of the Motor Parkway Bridge, changing it from 2 to 4 lanes. And the town board knows you have committed this board to doing several intersection improvements, some of which you were already undertaken, and we're going to be doing those other ones in the future. The third strategy is the subject of tonight's public hearing and concerns the zoning regulations as it relates to the park. Because of the number of variances sought regarding certain provisions of our code, and because of requests of the business owners, we determined that there were sections of the town code that could be changed that will allow more flexibility and be more competitive with the surrounding towns and other communities within the region. At first, we considered amending the zoning ordinance to permit some of these changes. However, some of the suggestions, such as building parking garages, were still an issue for other parts of the town. It was then decided that the best approach would be to create an overlay district for the industrial park. We could then amend the code, apply the changes to a specific area without having impacts in other parts of the town. For the last 2 years, this matter was discussed with the town board and representatives from the Hauppauge Industrial Association. While there were a number of suggestions to change the town code as it relates to height, parking, and so forth, the selection of changes were narrowed to fit within the traffic assessment, sewage capacity, and the assessment from other studies. In basic terms, there are 4 alterations that we're going to be discussing tonight with regard to the overlay district. These concern height, parking, outside storage, and the calculation of building area. In terms of height, we are recommending that the maximum height be changed from 35 feet throughout the entire park, excluding those sites that are within 1,000 feet of residentially zoned properties. Along Motor Parkway, we are raising the limit to 62 feet. In the map of the park that is shown behind me, and the one that we have handed out, and the one that is before the board, the area in yellow shows the area where the height will remain at 35 feet. The area in blue, which is shown along Motor Parkway, the buildings will be permitted to go to 62 feet. I would also note, because I was asked questions by some of the members of the public before the hearing, is that this only applies to the height. The other regulations that we're talking about are for the entire industrial park. By raising the height from 35 feet to 50 feet, office buildings could be built that are now 4 stories instead of 3 stories, provided they have sufficient parking. Further, the new automated warehouse systems that are now 44 feet in height, and which is the issue that sparked the interest in increase in height, can be accommodated. And finally, this height requirement now matches and is competitive with the height requirements of Huntington, Islip, and Brookhaven, who currently have height requirements of 45 to 50 feet height requirements in their industrial zone. The second change that we are considering would permit sites to merge parking lots or now build parking garages up to 2 stories in height. Currently, the town permits commercial sites such as shopping centers to merge parking lots that permit parking to be more efficiently constructed and used. Comac Plaza is an example of this. We're extending this practice to our industrial sites. In addition, we are now permitting parking garages that we believe are an integral part of large office building construction. When you examine large office sites such as Computer Associates or Canon USA headquarters, parking garages, rather than a large sea of asphalt, are necessary features of this type of a building. The third change that we are considering is permitting a limited amount of outdoor storage. Currently, outdoor storage is prohibited, even though there are a large number of users in the industrial park find it necessary. Container shipping is the most common form of shipping today, and there are several businesses that receive and store containers on a regular basis. Both the Hauppauge Industrial Association, which represents the businesses in the park, and the town were concerned over relaxing this provision because some businesses might tend to use the outdoor storage processing for manufacturing activity or processing. And we're including in this things like using outdoor compactors. These type of activities are not permitted with this zone change. Under the provision of this code, we are considering tonight a business will be able to store materials outside equivalent to 10% of the building size, provided it is screened from public view. For example, a building of 50,000 square feet will be allowed to store 5,000 square feet of material. That size is increased to 20% of the building size if all of the material is within containers. All of these changes would require a site plan or a site plan exemption, and approvals will be considered as part of the building plans. The final change that we are considering this evening is to exclude large atriums and lobbies from building calculations for parking. Currently, modern large office buildings usually have oversized lobbies or atriums as part of the building's feature. This is usually associated with the higher-end office buildings that charge the highest rents and, by the way, also pay the highest amount in taxes. The town of Smithtown requires additional parking for this space, effectively discouraging the construction of these types of offices. For obvious reasons, We want to encourage these buildings and not penalize them for space that is not used for occupancy. Those are the 4 changes that we are considering with this amendment. We believe that these changes will keep our industrial park competitive with other areas and help retain our tax base. While these changes in the ordinance would permit some flexibility in land use, it is important to keep in mind that we are dealing with, and this is the 3rd time I'm mentioning it, an area that is fully developed. This means that the rate of change in the park will depend upon modifying existing sites, either through teardowns or reconstructions. While we could see some large office construction in the next few years, and we hope to see some, we believe that most of these changes will first and best affect the existing businesses that are in the park. First, we anticipate that the warehouse distribution centers, who have been the most number of calls about this that we've received, will be the first users of our new height requirement. Second, while we'll be permitting some expansion of outdoor storage, we believe that the changes that we are recommending will tend to legalize what is currently happening. However, the business owners will now have to meet certain standards, and we should be able to better regulate this type of activity. Finally, if we are setting the stage for future development, and if we are wish to attract a user like Canon or Computer Associates, we should have an ordinance that at least permits the types of buildings that they are constructing. We should not have to, as we did for TriTech, which is located at 100 Motor Parkway, those are the 2 large office buildings, have to rely upon numerous variance hearings in order to get a building that all of us wanted to begin with. There are, of course, other changes that have been suggested for the park that are excluded from this proposal, and they should be considered. However, as we have come to understand that many of those changes, such as increasing building size even further, would require additional infrastructure and more study, and more likely to trigger an environmental impact statement. Since the town will be required to complete an environmental impact statement before adopting the comprehensive plan update, we believe that that's the vehicle to consider these other requests. In summary, what we are proposing at tonight's public hearing is in part a town strategy overall to maintain and hopefully improve our largest economic centers. We want an industrial park that is modern and competitive and successful. This, in turn, will benefit the town of Smithtown and its residents. Mr. Supervisor, that concludes my comments for this evening.
Just one thing. I think I got 3 of the 4 changes. I think we can synthesize them down. Changing the height requirement,
Correct?
outside storage,
Correct?
and the ability to build a multi-level garage space.
That's correct.
What's the 4th?
The 4th is not counting atrium space as
Not
part
counting atrium
as
space
part of the
for
building
parking.
area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, anybody on the board have a question? If not, we'll go to the audience. Mr. Skip Eichler?
Good evening. I have the mic. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I live at 61 Eagle Lane in Hauppauge, which is directly behind the PODS manufacturing facility. Specifically, the thing that is of most concern to me is the outdoor storage portion. I did not know that outdoor storage was prohibited, because for years the pod company has stored their pods 50 feet from my property in the back. And I have had to call the town on a couple of occasions because they have piled them 3 and 4 high. All winter long, I can see every one of those. There is a constant noise problem with this, particularly in the summer. I cannot have my windows open. Trucks come in there at all hours of the night and just idle away. So I would speak against permitting outdoor storage in that area. And also, if they were to permit a parking garage within 50 feet of my home, I would find that very, very bad. So you have a difficult choice between additional possible revenue and the quality of life of residents who've been living there for many years. So I hope you guys make the right decision.
Well, that's a good question. Mr. DeRubies, would the parking garages be located at the border of residences?
Well, first, I would like to mention, I would like to check the property. We do have a couple of properties that are adjacent and have no buffer, but 95% or the majority of properties that we have a 100-foot buffer already in place. So there should be at least 100 feet between that and any parking lot that is there. But I would like to, I'm going to check this property. I'll have an answer for you tomorrow
So,
on this one. However, as far as storage is concerned, the containers will only be permitted to store just one height.
just one height, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Ruth Palazzolo? Rose, I'm sorry.
I live in St. James, and I'm very interested in what's happening in the Hop Park Industrial Park because that affects everybody's taxes in town. Since you are making these changes, what are you offering to the businesses that are there now, been there a long time, do not have to expand? What can we do to keep them from being lured by Islip or Huntington or Brookhaven by them being offered maybe less taxes, and so they'll get maybe 100% tax reduction for, and so far like 90, 10, whatever. In 10 years, they'll go down to paying 100%. But I think we have to do something for the people that have been in the industrial park a long time, while we're also trying to get new industry to come in here. And as you know, Brookhaven has Stony Brook, and Como is giving them 10% no taxes at all for the people who put their businesses in Stony Brook. So we have a lot of competition, but I think we do have to do something to keep our businesses here, and I'd like to know if you have a plan maybe to give them the same benefits that you are giving new businesses to locate here.
You want to answer that?
Okay. Mr. Supervisor, Ms. Palazzolo, the town has a program in place right now. We do not traditionally have supported tax abatement programs because what we have found is that industries are extremely mobile nowadays, and they wait till the tax benefit is expired and they then move.
I know.
What the town has adopted, and we are working with the county through the County Industrial Development, Economic Development Agency, is we issue what is called industrial development bonds. These are low-cost supports for businesses that wish to improve in that particular area. However, all the towns apparently have all this type of a process, so it's not the cure-all for trying to keep them from, let's say, out of another town.
Well,
but that's the best way we think of keeping businesses here, is to allow them industrial development bonds.
It would be good if there'd be an open door policy for businesses that are here where they could maybe tell us what they need before they decide to go elsewhere, or tell them to come in and talk to you and let you know what these other towns and states are offering them, and maybe we could meet them in some way, because I believe it's really hard thing for a business to get up and move, say, from Long Island to Florida. If they could get the same things here or something, that would make them happy to stay. So maybe we could work with the electric companies and get them to give them solar panels or something so they wouldn't get such high electric bills. I mean, we have to think positive in making people want to stay here on Long Island.
Thank you. Mr. Gene Kelly?
I have two issues I'd like to talk about. I happen to be, I'm retired. I had a job as a manufacturing engineer, and that's what I did for my total time that I worked. And I'm surprised at the fact that you want to try to raise levels of factories because that's not done anymore. If you go around Brooklyn or New England, you see old factories that were typically built back in our Industrial Revolution, 3, 4, 5 stories high. They're being knocked down, old brick buildings. Nobody uses them anymore because it's counterproductive to move material and products that you're working on and machinery from floor to floor. So that's the reason it's not done, and that's the reason that you see factories spread out and on one level. So I don't understand the reason for that, for doing that. Had you said, let's put parking on top of a one-story factory, and in the space that the parking was, expand the factory, that would have made more sense to me. That's my first question. My second question has to do with the idea of allowing outdoor storage. I've lived in Smithtown for 52 years now, and I was here when I lived on the borderline of the industrial park. I now live across the street from it. But at that time, when the factories were being built, John V. N. Klein was the supervisor, and a group of us in the Point of Woods development got together, and we challenged the town on this because we wanted a buffer zone between the borderline of our property and the industrial park, and we got it. We rallied around, and we put ads in the paper and everything, and people supported us, and we got a 100-foot buffer zone, which I think is still there. I no longer live on the borderline of the property, and I'm not sure of this, but the issue I see here is, in the literature that I read on the back of this map that I got from the last meeting that didn't occur, it said that if this outdoor storage is going to allow storage to move up to 10 foot away from the property line. And that's the way I read it in there. I don't know whether that's true or not, but if it is, that certainly is not a good thing when you talk about the quality of life. The people that have been here for 40 years and lived near the industrial park are now going to be close to a lot of storage.
Okay,
And
we'll
that
let him
was not
answer.
the intent.
We'll have him answer that question.
Oh, if I may answer, your first question was about the storage, the building height. This is not my area of expertise, and you probably know more than I do about this, but I do know that we have 3 users in the park who are putting in what is called automated storage facilities. And these are racks that are apparently 44 feet in height, and there's a limit because these are what the manufacturer is working on. So they need a building that's 50 feet height, and this is what spurred this whole discussion, is these automated, they're robotic warehouses. So there may be other manufacturing that that you're more familiar with, but this is what we were faced with, and these are the people that are interested in that. With regard to the 100-foot buffer, that is still in place. That 10 feet does not include that buffer. That buffer is a permanent easement that will never be touched. And when it, we've had a couple of instances where it has been illegally cleared. We do make the owners replant that, and that's a routine occurrence that we have gone through, but it's been fixed. What that 10 feet referred to is really on the interior of buildings that do not have buffers. They'll be permitted to put in outside storage within 10 feet of their neighbor's property, meaning other industrial buildings.
I see.
Okay?
Thank you. Is this Ronnie Katz? Yvonne?
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Katz. I live in 28 Tulipwood Drive, and I'm going based upon the literature that was also sent, and based on this presentation, it stipulates that the Hapog Industrial Park is zone light industrial, but omits the clear definition, which is also
Mrs.
known
Katz,
as
could you bring that microphone closer to
Sure.
you?
it omits the clear definition that it's also known as non-nuisance industry. And as per Article 322.3, it is any industry, the manifestation of which do not extend beyond the limits of the property where it is located by reason of emission of odor, dust, fume, gas, vibration, light, noise, or similar conditions, or any condition hazardous to the community. In other words, light industry zoning was created to allow business neighboring residential areas with the condition to not disturb residents. As the gentleman mentioned, it appears many of these businesses in the park at the present moment are in violation of this code. Number two is, how does the town benefit? The planning department is claiming here that after studying the industrial uses in the park, does this mean that those businesses in violation of light industry code will now be within the right to extend beyond the limits of their property by reason of emission of noise, vibration, dust, or fumes? Did the planning department study the land use of the neighboring areas, whose land use is single-family residence? In my perspective, the planning department did not. To claim that no negative impact in the neighboring properties will occur is not accounting for the many residents who live in the surrounding areas in the park, since the findings are only to benefit the park, but not the residents, who will be enduring the noise, the vibrations from heavy machinery needed to accommodate and to operate huge containers for cargo and shipments. What about the rats that will migrate once the excavations begin for underground parking lots? And the dust and fumes the construction of these new structures will create. Number three, on the clause 3, in the literature, B category at the bottom of the page, it states up to 20% of the gross floor area will be allowed in containers. Please note that 20% of the gross floor area of these properties entails huge containers. These operations are on an average of 40,000 square feet, which will entail an average of 8,000 square feet of outdoor storage allowed, some even larger. And the only consideration the planning department is addressing is the aesthetics affecting the park. The department is not taking into account the nature of these operations by allowing huge containers, greater shipments, more trucks, heavier machinery, loading docks, greater noise disturbances in the neighborhood will occur, particularly around those located in the perimeter of the park. I have one more. Okay. In the purpose of this zone change, the planning department's claim to attract high-quality business developments seems at opposition to the type of business that require extra storage. Warehouses do not appear to me high-quality business development, as it is Mall Drive, the property behind my property, the road behind my property already has the characteristics of a third world country. It appears as the deteriorated aspect in this park is being promoted here. The park will only become less quality and more problems for the town and its residents. The land in the park is very valuable in comparison to Calverton and Riverhead due to its proximity to the Long Island Expressway. This zone change will greatly increase the value of this land, the commercial land, but it will destroy the value of the residential land if no mitigating measures are set in place. The residential areas surrounding the park must be shielded from these noxious industries. Thank you very much. I'm sorry it took so long.
Chris Piano.
I kind of think it's apropos that I follow Ms. Katz, because I'm going to tell you exactly that. Last fall, you had a meeting concerning a DHL plant that now occupies 325 Rabbroad Drive. Unable to attend that meeting, as I am a teacher and it was parent-teacher night, we wrote a rather strong letter against this approval and detailed the impact it would have on our quality of life. My immediate neighbor attended that meeting at the same time with his concerns. Within 2 days of the meeting, even before a decision was made by this planning board, we heard renovations being made at that facility. I phoned the planning board and spoke to someone named Blaze, or someone in the Smithtown office. You can almost hear the sarcastic grin through the phone. He said to me, well, you should have been at the meeting. I had already told him why I couldn't be. It appeared to be a done deal before the board even ruled. Our concerns must have fallen on deaf ears, because now with that DHL plant at 325 Rabbroad Drive, we are disturbed by loud trucking noises, Loud conversations using profane language by the drivers loading the trucks. The beeping of trucks as they reverse at 4 to 5 a.m. on a daily basis. Loud crashing noises by garbage trucks at 5 a.m. as they drop the dumpsters. A loud warning signal as a bay door is opened, etc., etc. I can go on and on. Please don't tell me to report this as a noise disturbance, as I have already phoned a Miss Sylvester, who never returned 3 voicemails. As a public employee myself, and if a parent left a voicemail for me, and I didn't return that in one day, I would be in the superintendent's office. How Miss Sylvester gets away with this is beyond me. My home is only 2 lots from the DHL facility, and I can't imagine the impact that the noise and disturbances of our quality of life will be if you relax this overlay district. As you are all aware, the line between Smithtown and Islip borders that property. So therefore, I pay my taxes to the town of Islip. But the disturbances to our quality of life, the issues previously stated, know no borders between townships. Are we being ignored in our concerns and our phone calls because we pay our taxes to the town of Islip? I surely hope not. But if that's the case, shame on the town of Smithtown. I would like to invite every one of you, here also, to my home. Sit on my deck. Hear the disturbances of the warning signal as the bay doors open. Hear the beeping and the loud noises at 4 to 5 a.m. that awaken me on a daily basis. Hear the crashing of the dumpsters at 4:30 in the morning as garbage is collected. Hear the loud and profane conversations from the men loading the trucks. We never had these issues before that DHL plant was approved. Never. And now you want to increase the height and the occupancy of the overlay district? You want to approve warehouse distribution centers? The revenue from big business must mean much more to you than the quality of life of the surrounding homes and the residents in those homes who work hard every day to maintain their homes and deserve a quiet, peaceful quality of life.
Thank you. Well, you might want to say that. Paul Borowski?
Good evening, and I wasn't able to make the last meeting, but Mr. Pulley also has the letter, but I'm going to enhance on that letter. Overall, as a banker, financial person, I clearly understand the idea of competition and the need to enhance the height. Overall, based on what I'm seeing and based on the buffer zone of 1,000 feet, I am in favor of that, subject to certain controls. Number one, I want to have it reinforced that that 1,000 feet remains firm without exceptions from the Zoning Board of Appeals. I understand it's a one-on-one basis. However, that is a big concern for those exceptions. There were already, I live on Autumn Drive, there has been some exceptions along New Highway. On the quality of life concerns that we're all here concerning about, traffic safety, already, which I've brought up numerous times, I know it's been something that's been a 2-year fight on Autumn Drive. With increased business, we're going to have increased traffic, and we already have speeding going down on my street, where I was almost clipped many times. On Autumn Drive, there's Cardinal Lane, there's Robin Drive, there's Eagle Lane, just in the immediate vicinity of the area that people already shortcut, and that's not even increasing the population of the businesses. So that's a concern. The air quality, Ms. Pano brought up about Hauppauge Islip. Although it was Hauppauge Islip with the Suffolk asphalt plant, I'm concerned about the air quality, as they've had problems in Hauppauge Islip. Again, air has no boundaries. Concerned about noise pollution. We've had that in the summertime, where we've actually heard an air conditioning unit across from the park from us, and vibrations and so forth. So those are concerns. Light pollution, looking at the idea of if the lights are on, and that's something that really needs to be monitored in evening hours. Environmental pollution, just making sure that we don't have another 100 Osser Avenue event. Granted, that was the 70s, times have changed, have those controls in place. And also looking at our water quality. So those are some of the concerns that I have. I'd like to see if some of those, or not some of these controls are in place. I agree that we need to be competitive. I agree understanding the height requirements on some manufacturing companies. Being a banker as I am, I understand that. But we need to do this prudently, carefully, and not rushed. And I understand it's been on your side maybe a long time, but really for our side, I was also here when there was no Wasser Avenue where I used to play mini bikes back there. And I've seen changes, not necessarily always for the better. So let's value between revenue and quality of life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Levin.
Mike Levin, 14 Cannon Drive, Hauppauge. I live in a subdivision for 30 years in close proximity to the industrial park. My main concern was the outdoor storage, although many people have already expressed things that I was planning on expressing. One item is lighting levels that inevitably will go up to secure the equipment in the outdoor storage areas. This could have a very negative impact on the surrounding residences. And then noise levels has been discussed by many people before me. Perhaps at night, movement of equipment should be eliminated actually at night. And finally, unrelated to the overlay district is odor control. Years ago on Adams Avenue there was an artificial flavorings company, and you could smell the odors from that plant for thousands of yards around the industrial park. So careful consideration to odor control must be given. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Macaluso.
Good evening, 158 Shady Lane, Smithtown. Maybe, I have two questions, the second one may not occur. The homeless facility, is that excluded from the expansion project? Used to be the old Howard Johnson's, it's now a homeless shelter on Moorwood? Or is that part of this expansion?
It is within the blue area. Yes, it is part of this area, yes. But
Okay, so
you're
my
talking
second...
about the one on Moreland Road?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that is within this area, yes.
Okay, so it can be an expanded, even though it is a residential facility, correct?
Well, it's not a residential facility. Legally, it is a motel, hotel, and that is you need a special exception permit from this board in order to expand that particular facility. So once a permit is issued, it has to remain at a fixed size. If there are going to be any changes in size, it has to come back and get approval from this board. That's for all hotels and motels.
Okay,
The
well,
question
just...
is, if that's within the blue area, can the owner of that building raise the height as per the overlay district?
Only with your approval.
I think it's
Okay.
excluded from the blue area. I think if you look at it, it's in the clear. I'm not sure from the aerial photograph, but I believe that little cutout is probably the facility.
Well, the Howard Johnson site I thought you were referring to is the one in the front. If you're talking about the motel, that's all owned by Howard Johnson, all parcels in there. The scene is in the front. That's the nightclub, I believe. That is excluded because that doesn't have the frontage. But that is permitted to go up to 50 feet in height as part of the regular district. But if it does decide to make an application to go to 50 feet as a motel, it needs a separate permit from this board.
Okay, so I'm just going to state my concern that if people who drive up and down Motor Parkway currently will always see children and families walking in. With the expansion, I think having the ability to make that higher at some point in time would not only be detrimental to the community, but for the lives of those children who are living in deplorable conditions as it is, and to make that further a mega shelter than it already is would be a detriment to the children. So I just ask that you take that into consideration.
Ivan Arakovic.
Good evening. So I'm Ivan Irakovic. I live on 21 Tulipwood Drive in Comac, and I also work in Industrial Park.
You can take that out so you
okay.
can speak close.
So I'm sharing most of the concerns that the other people in the audience here shared, and I feel that in presentation by I believe zoning director, the impact on neighborhood is taken very lightly, and we have to take into account that more than 50% of the park boundary is really residential neighborhoods. What's also was not clear to me from his presentation is he mentioned that the reason for the overlay district is that some of these changes would not be easy to pass in the whole town. So my question is, why would something that has an impact in other parts of the town, why it doesn't have an impact in Hopog?
Want me to answer that?
Yeah.
In this particular area, we have routinely, and I would say routinely, have approved buildings that are 50 feet in height. And to the best of my knowledge, over the last 30 years, there's been no denial of that particular request. There have been denials in other parts of the town for increasing the heights of buildings, but none in the industrial park. When you look at zoning and you see that you are always granting a particular type of variance in a particular area and never, ever raising an objection to it, then that is usually an indicator that your ordinance is out of date. It's a standard practice. So that's the Board of Appeals, who has examined this particular area, who gives the height requirements, has basically concluded, and we concur with their conclusion, that a height requirement expansion in the industrial park, and we have multiple buildings with this. I mean, when I say multiple, we're talking at least 40 buildings that are at 50 feet or higher. There's been no impact from a visual point of view or from a use point of view. So that's why we have made this recommendation. If you were to take light industrial property, which is right along this particular road right here, and made it 50 feet, it could possibly impact both the visual character as well as much more of the surrounding residential than with the Hopog Industrial Park. There's no buffer in this particular area. And keep in mind that what we're talking about is that the 50 feet that we're talking about is 1,000 feet from the nearest residential property. So that's what the board concluded.
Thank you. I understand that, and I don't think that anybody here in the audience has an issue with that. We're all for business development, and nobody has an issue with the high-value office space and so. But major concern here is the storage area, and as you pointed out in your presentation, warehouse distribution centers that are planning to come to that area. Why didn't you, in that case, why didn't you amend the town code to accept the warehouse distribution centers and storage area in the whole town, because obviously that's a non-issue, and then just made an overlay district for the height of the buildings? Again, I'm going back to the
Okay, I'm not sure I understand your question.
My question is, and I'll try to repeat it. You clearly stated the reason for an overlay district is because most of these changes will not be accepted in other parts of the town.
Many of the changes, not most of them, many of the changes.
Okay, so why didn't you, those that wouldn't be accepted, like you said, the height, why didn't you make it an overlay, and those others that would have been accepted?
Okay, well, first let's take outside storage. On Jericho Turnpike, outside storage is a permitted activity throughout its entire length. In other words, you can do on Jericho Turnpike, which is adjacent to most of the residents that we have in town, which you cannot do in the industrial park. So
when you say that we don't allow it in any of the other locations, we do. Any place on Jericho Turnpike is allowed outside storage. Just drive up and down the road and you will see that. So we permit that in what we call the wholesale service and industrial zone. We don't permit it in light industry. We still don't want to permit it generally in light industry because we have other areas of the town that we are concerned about certain types of activities, Old Northport Road being one. What
Which
we
road,
are,
I'm sorry?
Old Northport Road in Kings Park. What we are concerned about, however, is that on a practical basis, even though we don't want, we're kind of concerned about outdoor storage, there is, with some of the businesses, and I've talked to some of the owners, there is a practical side towards having outdoor storage. And I'm trying to reach or trying to recommend a compromise on this particular activity. I did meet with some of the neighbors down there. There's a couple of users that have gone well beyond just outside storage and are using compactors and other activities, and we want to prohibit those kind of things. But for those other users who their business operates with containers and they need these kind of things, we're trying to reach a compromise. But if they were located, those same industries on Jericho Turnpike, they would be allowed to do outside storage.
Well, I don't stay really convinced by your argument, but just to make a few more points, there is some sort of a draft economic resources study of a Smithtown that cites low vacancy rate, desire to bring new high-tech manufacturing jobs and sufficient capacity for traffic in a Hauppauge Industrial Park. I want to just point out, I know I have only 10 seconds, working in industrial park for more than 15 years, the vacancy rate is not low. You have, advertising all over the park. The high-tech manufacturing jobs are going away. My company just laid off 100 people, and the capacity for traffic, especially for heavy traffic, is not really that high. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Joe Hodowski?
Good evening. I'd like to discuss the traffic pattern, I guess, going through New Highway. I live on 2 Pinoak Lane, which is on the corner of Dewberry and Pinoak. Yes. And my concern is the traffic flow coming through there at the 5 o'clock hour. I come off the Northern State Parkway, and it can take me 15 minutes just to get to my house at that particular time of night. I'd like to know if there was a traffic study done.
There is a traffic study both for the 347 Vets Highway corridor as well as the Hauppauge Industrial Park. Both those areas are currently classified as having D-level service, and the state is attempting to do, well, they've concentrated now on 347, but there is a plan that they put into a place, and what they get to it, I don't know, from Northern State that will extend all the way down to the beginning of 347. They had a plan in place, but when they plan to undertake that, I don't know. The Hauppauge Industrial Park did a study. It didn't include the new highway, but they stopped short of, because of the boundaries of the park, they stopped short of new highway and Vets Highway. So we have the traffic counts, and if you want a copy of the report, I could give you a copy of that report.
Okay. So my concern, though, you're saying there's 50,000 people working in the industrial park now?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm assuming you're going to anticipate additional people coming into that park?
There will be some additional, yes.
Okay. Is there going to be another traffic study to monitor that, or?
No, we already figured out the numbers for the traffic study, and it's based upon the traffic patterns. In a very brief manner, 20% of the traffic from the industrial park goes north towards the Smithtown area. 20% goes east and 20% goes west, and the remaining traffic goes south. The traffic that will go north, and we figured on an increase of, and I forget the exact percentage, but the current service levels that are on New Highway at peak hour, which are D-level service, means that it's delayed in terms of that. It will not be impacted by any significant number going that would alter the level of service. In other words, it's when we consider to be in acceptable ranges. So that's the finding that we had, and that was based upon the assumption that we would still have the same distribution of office, manufacturing, and retail space that we have in the town, and that the expansion would be uniform across all three types, and we calculated those.
Okay. Also, then, the noise impact study. Have you done a noise impact study at all? Or?
No.
No. Is there plans on doing that, or?
No, there wasn't any plans on doing that, no.
So how will you monitor the additional noise that might come with outdoor storage or, additional?
Outdoor storage was meant to be passive in terms of its nature. It's not meant to have activity associated with it. That was one of the key elements that everyone was concerned about. In other words, that you won't be outside of shipping and loading, that you would normally have trucks and other types of loading material. That would be the only noise that would be outside. What currently has been the complaints that we have received on a regular basis from noise for the industrial park happen to do with loading and shipping with regard to it, and it's the truck noise, and the most common complaint is the continuous backup noise of trucks. And there's nothing from a zoning point of view that we could do with regard to that.
Okay, only because from my backyard, I can hear the humming of, I'm not sure what type of equipment it is, but at nighttime it's very visible, or you can hear it very well. And I'm not sure if that's something that we can, study or try to figure out, if additional noise comes into that.
Okay, I have, 2 weeks ago, I visited another person's house who is apparently experiencing noise from high-vac equipment. There's a fan that is going through. In those type of situations, we're going to have to take a look at, one of the things I asked my staff to take a look at is high-vac equipment, because obviously the example that I just saw, even though it was positioned in the correct fashion, is producing a noise that is reflecting onto this one person's house, and we have to figure out some sort of change or procedure for high-vac. It's heating, ventilation, air conditioning equipment. I'm sorry to use it in an acronym. And we normally just shielded them, and that seemed to be okay, but now it appears that the noise is traveling, and I've asked my staff to take a look into seeing how we could put in noise attenuation, either at the source or somewhere on the property lines. But that is an issue. I would agree with you, having one of your neighbors or one of the people in the area pointed that out to me, and I see how it happens, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Susan Hadowski.
Good evening. My name is Susan Nadowski. I live at 2 Pin Oak Lane, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I have two concerns that I'd like to express. One is the neighborhood adjacent to Adams Avenue, which is where I live and many of our community members live, has one exit out of that neighborhood onto New Highway. That is Pine Hollow. Other than that one exit, that neighborhood has to funnel onto 347, as you had expressed earlier. I understand that the state is making changes to 347. No, they have not gotten past New Highway. My understanding is they're not going that far. But you have a community of people in that triangle area who have no exit out of their neighborhood except for Pine Hollow or 347. So increasing traffic in that area is a danger to that community at this point. The other quick issue I just wanted to mention is the facility on Motor Parkway, the homeless shelter. When you go down Motor Parkway and Moreland Avenue on a daily basis, you will see, unfortunately, moms, dads, baby strollers, trying to cross Motor Parkway, trying to get to the 7-Eleven or some stores to get food with their food vouchers for their children. In the fall, there were 128 families living in that hotel. You called it a hotel. My understanding is it wasn't considered a hotel. To increase the volume of traffic in an area where we have children trying to cross main roads without any kind of crossing, walk, or lights is going to be a tragedy at some point. It's unfortunate that our county executive decided that this was an appropriate place to put a shelter, but he did. It is a huge facility, and it's not a safe place for these families and these kids. So to expand any traffic in that area is only going to make it more dangerous at this point for those families. Maybe that's not where that shelter belongs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm in receipt of a letter which I will read into the record, and we do that for people who do send in comments on a particular application. It's written by the Long Island Association, it's written to myself and to the Smithtown Town Board. The LIA supports the plan to establish an overlay district in the town zoning code and to designate the Hop Park Industrial Park as the first such district. The park is one of the engines of the Long Island economy, employing approximately 5,500 workers and covering 1,400 acres. The new zoning will allow for greater flexibility for future development without negatively impacting the environment or quality of life. Excuse me. In fact, modifications that affect parking, outdoor storage, building size, and height will result in additional economic activity and potential for new jobs. By approving the creation of the overlay district, the park will not only remain a tremendous asset to the town and the entire Long Island economy, but it also will ensure its future as one of the largest and most important industrial parks in the country. Thank you for your consideration. Signed by Kevin Law, President and CEO. Mr. Clerk, will you make that part of the record? That concludes the meeting, and I'll move to close the meeting.
Second. Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all for coming. We'll go into the agenda. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. There was one more here. Mr. Katz? Martin Katz? I'm sorry, I didn't call your name. Do you want to come up? Well, I'll reopen the meeting.
Second.
Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Noack?
I'll be fast. I just have two questions. The first one, was there environmental study done when you switch from Zone 1 to Zone 2? And the second one is, how much additional revenue will the town of Smithtown get from doing this project? And if it's going to be a nice piece of change, will any taxes come back for the residents that live around there and reduce their taxes? Because when you make changes, unfortunately, the way life is in America, there's always a dollar catch to it. So my question is, how much additional revenue will be generated for the town of Smithtown, and what benefit will the residents around there get? And the second one, when you go from a zone to a zone, there got to be some kind of studies done. And to me, environmental study is very important. People mentioned here about storage, about height, about this, the sewage. When are they going to start digging the holes? When they start digging holes, when you're having additional buildings, you have to do piping. I know it's going to bring in a lot of jobs, but also will bring in a lot of rats for people that live around there because they have to go somewhere. So I would like to hear the basic two questions, was there a study done, and how much additional revenue will the town of Smithtown generate from this? Because things are only done, we live in America, things are only done is how much more money will be generated.
I will answer the last part of your question about whatever the amount of money that's generated. 70% of that will go to the Hop Park School District. So you will benefit. Allow me to finish.
Okay.
You will benefit, those of you who live in the Hop Park School District will benefit from that. The town of Smithtown will only get 10%, 10.5% of the total amount. So it's not our desire to create this because we see a whole panoply of more tax money. It's very limited for what the town gets.
What about the town of Comac?
That's not a town of, there's no town of Comac.
I mean, Comac. I mean, you
Right.
mentioned Hop Park. What about Comac?
The industrial park is in, most of it is in, is my microphone off here?
No, it's going in and out.
Okay. Most of the industrial park is in the Hop Park School District. The Hop Park School District will be the largest beneficiary of whatever amount of money is generated.
Okay, and my second question about studies, environmental studies, because you are bringing a whole brand new, I mean, do you have a study? Is it printed? Is it handed out? Do people know
May I
about
answer
it?
your?
You can answer that.
Okay. First off, there are several studies that have been done in this particular area, including a study in environmental impact for the sewer system. There's also a study that was related environmentally to the traffic study. I would note that we also have, and this is available online, if you want to read, it's volume 6 of our comprehensive plan update, which deals with economic resources, which talks about the issues that I mentioned in my presentation. And in the final analysis, this matter, before it got to this particular board, the town board submitted this to the Department of Environment and Waterways, who submitted a report back to this town, and that report is key to what is happening here because it establishes thresholds at what would trigger an environmental impact statement and what would not trigger an environmental impact statement with regard to this. And in the final analysis, this town board will have to adopt findings on that environmental review when it is all done.
Well, when will the public know about that?
You know about it now.
No, I mean what the board decides on their studies.
Well, the board is going to, after this, close the hearing, and then the procedure is this is referred to the Department of Environmental Waterways for a final recommendation.
Is that state or?
No, it's local.
What about New York State? Did they get involved in this? On these environmental studies?
Well, we work under the New York State Economic Review Act. So we do work under these auspices of an act that was passed and is mandated upon localities.
Do you also have to send them a copy of
No.
the study? No.
Well, I would, not the state, but we did have to send, and there was Mr. Supervisor, there was a meeting last month. We are required by state law to give the adjacent towns and the Suffolk County Planning Commissions a summary of our findings.
That's not
And
his
we do
question.
have their conclusions, and you're welcome to come to my office and take a look at it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, once again, I'll move to close the meeting.
Second. Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noah?
Yes.
Okay, it is cold in here. Okay, I'll begin the agenda. No, we still have the meeting on. Okay, under correspondence, we have a second reading for a Wisconsin Day event, a first reading for Hop Park High School Homecoming Parade, and a first reading for Hop Park School 5K Run. Anybody wish to be heard for or against those permits? We also have on file a building department report for May 2014. Resolution, Town Board to authorize the clerk to advertise for the following bid to be returned to Town Hall. A bid for traffic signal construction.
Councilwoman Noah?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor
Town Board to
Vecchio?
award the following bids and authorize the purchase of associated goods. A bid for lumber to East Islip Lumber Company, a bid for inspection, maintenance, and repair of aerial apparatus, a bid for residential LED street lighting to Material Class 1 and to Kelly and Hayes, a bid for traffic signal maintenance to Hink Electrical Contractor, and a bid for xerographic paper to WS Mason. Also a bid for requirements contract for refuse remediation, a bid for 2 skid steer loaders, a bid for cast iron drainage items, a bid for lawn and garden supplies, and that concludes the bids.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes, Town Board to authorize the clerk to advertise for the following request for proposal for GPS software solutions for town-owned mobile radios.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes, Town Board to approve the following approval of minutes of Thursday, May 22nd, 2014. The rejection of all bids received May 15th in connection with bid number 14041 for traffic sign faces. Town clerk to issue a special permit to the Wisconsin Chamber. D, a donation of synthetic turf maintenance services for the upkeep of field numbers 97 and 156 at Vets Memorial Park. Accept the deed of conveyance from the Suffolk County Water Authority for parcel of land. Revision of the Suffolk County multi-jurisdictional multi-hazard mitigation plan. An amendment to the agreement with the Civil Service Employment Union Association. And a rescission of resolution number 2014-462 meeting as it pertains to the sale of auctions items 8, 12, and 13 from the approved list, and the sale of surplus town highway equipment, and a sole source repairs to Bolograph Baker by Van Dyke Baylor Corp.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes.
Number 5, the town board to authorize the controller to execute the following as per 5A through K of the agenda. That's transfers and increases in the revenue codes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes.
Number 6, the town board to authorize the supervisor to execute the following in a form approved by the town attorney: a lease agreement with Jeffrey P. Guerin for the rental of the Hoyt Farm House, B, Recreation Department specialized service agreements, and C, agreements with Village of Head of the Harbor.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes.
Town board to approve the following personnel as per 7A through AD of the agenda. And they are promotions, provisional appointments, seasonal appointments, part-time, seasonal, part-time, full-time appointment, salary and title change, seasonal and reappointments, a medical leave of absence, a salary change, seasonal appointment, seasonal and reappointment, seasonal appointments, part-time appointment, part-time contingent, permanent appointment, a full-time temporary appointment, seasonal appointment, seasonal, part-time appointment, seasonal change of title, return from unpaid medical leave, and full-time appointment with the effective date of employment changing to July 16, 2014.
I'll add an additional seasonal appointment for a $10 an hour position for sanitation helper.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes, and there are 3 other resolutions not on the printed agenda. Town Board to amend the resolution from 2013, number 967, to grant an extension of time until September 1st, 2014, in which the petitioner on zoning petition 2013-01, North Fork Management and Maintenance LLC shall have to complete the removal of all buildings and debris from the subject site as a designated tax number.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes. Town Board to approve pursuant to a public hearing held by the Town Board on June 3rd, 2014, to consider the town's entry upon certain real property located at 153 Alder Drive, said property reputedly owned by the estate of James Vida, and declares said site in violation of Chapter 221 of the Code. Further determines that the reputed owner of the property, once again the estate of James Vida, has failed to remediate said violations, and after notice of same, accordingly the Town Board hereby demands that the property owner remove all accumulated rubbish and debris, tall grass and weeds, overgrown vegetation, and bamboo within 10 feet of the subject property boundaries.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Warehime?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Vecchio?
Yes, and the last one is Town Board to authorize the supervisor to execute a New York State Liquor Authority special event permit application by Lovely Linda's Ice Cream regarding the concessions at the Long Beach Marina and Short Beach.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Warehime?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor
Somebody
Vecchio?
want to take- Okay, that concludes resolutions. Mr. Demousti's.
No, thank you. I don't feel like being blown off like I was 2 weeks ago and not being answered any of my questions.
Kevin Swadzo. Did I say that correctly?
Last name is Sconzo. Before you start the clock, I just got a couple questions, and then I'll hand out some literature I have. I just want to know, did the panel see the zoning board meeting that we had last night? Did anybody review that on the computer?
Not I.
I take that as no. Has anybody been down Montclair Avenue? That's the reason why I'm here. If not, that's fine. I have pictures here. I'm going to just hand them Ms. Nowak, and she can hand them down. The one sheet of the site that they're planning on down at the concrete facility is drawn out. That was given out last night at the zoning board. It's not my drawing.
Okay, but listen, you can't do what you're doing, Mr. Conzo. Mr. Sconzo, we have to record everything.
Okay.
So if you just want to pass those out.
Okay.
Okay.
Just what I had in Ms. Nowak was, one of the things was the layout of the proposed site. I just showed like there is 2 entrances going to be placed onto Montclair to access all of those parking spots. Along with that is a picture of the 4-story proposed building. I also printed out 5 pictures of all of the skid marks and burnouts that have been done in Montclair Avenue in the last 2 days. They are marked in sequential order from 1 to 5. The first picture is, if you notice, there's 2 skid marks simultaneously. If you looked at it in person, there's actually 3. That's from when the driver hit the gas in first gear, then you see a space, then a burnout, that's second gear, and off the picture is the same thing, which is third gear. The second picture, you'll notice the mailbox and the no outlet sign in the back, which is Rutherford Avenue. They are starting at that corner in front of all the residentials and are just speeding way down. The third is you'll see the school bus loaded with kids that is coming down and uses Montclair to drop the children off. Notice the skid marks in front of the school bus. Those pictures are not duplicates. I have about another dozen skid marks that I have on my computer that I just didn't feel like wasting my ink, because sometimes I feel like I'm wasting my time. Number 4, you'll see the town lawnmower that does the 6-foot cut coming back down towards the proposed site for the transfer station. And in picture number 5, you'll see the jogger with the houses in the background and 2 sets of skid marks, which are all new. Those are done in the last 3 days. I went to the meeting with the 4th precinct after the last board meeting, and I spoke to the police officer from the COPE unit. He's been sitting in front of my house with one of the cop cars, tagging people blowing through the stop signs. I had inquired about having a radar cop put down the end of the block, and does Suffolk County have extra cars to do that? He informed me that they do have extra cars, but strictly highway does it, and that Suffolk County will not take a highway cop off of the highway to sit there and shoot radar. We are trying to protect our children here. You could see the size of that lot. The amount of parking spots, I believe, were 597 cars. As of the site on 25 and 347, where they're planning to put some light industrial, their traffic and safety representative said 70% of all accidents are due to left-hand turns. That's the traffic and safety specialist. We have yet to hear from Mr. Crowley. We have yet to see Mr. Crowley, and none of us even know if Mr. Crowley exists. Where is Mr. Crowley in all this? And you can definitely see that Montclair is used as a raceway. We are trying to close Montclair Avenue. I'll make this quick because I know I'm over the time limit.
It's okay.
I handed out 40 papers today, 3-page letter I typed up to all the neighbors on Rutherford, Arlington, and Orchard. It appears none of them came here tonight. So apparently they're not against closing Montclair Avenue. We want Montclair Avenue. The Montclair Committee would like Montclair Avenue closed due to the fact that there is 2 off-ramps onto Montclair Avenue. Mr. DeRubius last night is in favor to go forward with the planning to put this monstrosity at the end of our block. The projected safety specialist said that will add 2,000 cars a day to Middle Country Road. Now, out of those 2,000 cars, those people have to go shopping. They go down Montclair Avenue, and he specified that they need to put it onto Montclair Avenue because it's a New York State law that you have to have it onto another road. You can't just have it onto Middle Country Road, the entrance. So all these cars are going to come down our area. You already see the speeding that's been going on, and we've been balking about that for, who knows how long. We'd like you guys to consider to seriously close Montclair Avenue, despite what Mr. Crowley and Mr. DeRubius say. They are all about the $1 million tax revenue that this units are going to, I guess, pay. Yet, there is no study by Mr. Crowley that has been given to any of the residents. We requisitioned whatever the raw data was because, honestly, we do not believe what the results will be because he can manipulate it in any way he feels possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia McGovern. Way out of line. It's okay.
Good evening. I'm Patricia McGovern. I live at 142 St. James Avenue South. At the last board meeting, I told the board that I would be attending a meeting at the Nesconset Library where the Suffolk County Police Department meets once a month to discuss issues with community members. At that meeting, myself and other neighbors discussed with Deputy Inspector Armando Valencia the grave concerns we had with the traffic safety issues in our community. He was responsive to our concerns and spent a large amount of time listening. Since that time, we have seen more of a police presence and quite a few summonses have been issued in our area. While at the same time, Inspector Valencia did respond that they cannot be in the neighborhood all the time, and I quote, "But there are certain streets, let's be real, that they're going to speed all the time. Montclair Avenue is one of those streets." I was witness to a large commercial landscaping vehicle traveling on Rutherford to Montclair being stopped for ignoring the 2.5-ton vehicle limit. The officer did not at that time issue a summons, but gave a warning to the driver. Unfortunately, the very next day, I saw the very same truck using the very same route. Just this week, another large commercial vehicle came barreling down the block, and when my husband, who was outside, waved and said he should not be there, he blew his horn and speeded up, prompting another neighbor and her daughter to come out of her home because they assumed a train was coming down the street. I would also like to ask at this time why Mr. Crowley has not responded with a recommendation for the closing of Montclair Avenue. When the original month-long traffic analysis was done, the recommendation to not close Montclair was sent to the board within a week. There was an urgency to only do a brief closure of Montclair to study how the traffic would be displaced. This was completed on May 22nd. What's the delay? Since Mr. Crowley is on record as not approving the closure, why hasn't he been investigating alternate solutions that can be presented to the community? As the school year comes to a close and we look forward to spending time outdoors with our children and our families, we are entitled to answers. Our community is being boosted out of the area. We are surrounded by industrial. We have the high school. We have the yard. We have a corner. Every corner has a dealership on it. We just feel that we are being squeezed out, and we need to get this. We need to get something done about the traffic safety issues in our area. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to close the meeting.
Second.
Supervisor Vecchio.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noah.
Yes.
No, that's what we have.